current president of Rensselaer Club of New Jersey, which is the New Jersey chapter of the Rensselaer Alumni Association. So I'd like to welcome you on behalf of the chapter to Degrees of Freedom, where one panel at a time will be celebrating and highlighting accomplished alumni in the area who've gone in all different directions since graduating from RPI, which is why we named it Degrees of Freedom. So today's inaugural panel is entitled Entrepreneurial Spirit, of course, and we're lucky to have these three speakers who have answered the age-old question, why not change the world entrepreneurially? First, we have Larry Furino, class of 2003, studied computer systems engineering and economics, and is also the founder of ACMB Solutions and owner of 2 and counting golf cave locations here in New Jersey. Next, we have Joe Evangelista, class of 2010, mechanical engineering with an economics minor. An experienced sales and operations management professional focused on small HVAC businesses here in the area. And last but not least, Shruti Gupta, class of 2022, computer science, and the founder of a GovTech platform called Pulsey. Some housekeeping before we start. You'll see the QR codes next to the names of the speakers. Those will take you to their LinkedIn accounts. They welcome all of you to connect if you feel inclined. And let's see. So we are recording as we just discussed, I believe, and so that we can share our collective brilliance with others who couldn't join us tonight. Okay. So now that I've done sort of the quick intros, I'll have the speakers tell us more about their story, go over some key steps along the way, and what got them to their current thing. So I suppose we'll go in order. Larry, would you like to start, please?
Sure. So,
Did you want to start the poll first before we start so that the speakers have an idea of where their audience is?
Touché, thank you. So Michelle, our communications
Sorry
chair,
about that.
is gonna, no, thank you, is gonna start a poll. So we're gonna see you entrepreneurs in the audience. If you are one, where you are in your journey, so we get an idea of how best to discuss things. Thank you, Michelle. Okay, Larry.
sure. So, I started out after RPI. My first real job, I'll say, was in consulting, and I had worked in that consulting company for about 7 years. And after going back to grad school and a brief stint in the financial services sector, I decided to go back out on my own and further the type of work that I had previously been doing in consulting. So that's how I started ACBM Solutions. I continued to build that up, and beyond consulting, I started creating software solutions, and now that kind of grew into primarily a software company. So that's the company that I have that's most in line or closest to what I had been studying at RPI. But really the next step in that journey was after I had grown ACBM a little bit, I hired a business coach and was able to hire myself out of the business to a large extent. I mean, I'm still involved on a daily basis, but I got myself out of the daily deliverable type of work. And through the guidance of my business coach, I decided to look into franchise opportunities, and that's how I got into the golf cave side of things. So it's a little bit of a longer story, but I opened one golf cave. It did really well, and then I just about a year later, I opened my second one, and looking forward to hopefully adding at least one or two more in the next couple of years.
Excellent, thank you. I'm gonna move this over. Joe, move on to you.
Yeah. Thank you all for the opportunity to speak tonight. Raya, this is a really cool opportunity. And so I think it's an interesting topic for sure. Me and you had some good conversation regarding it. For me, I came out of school, mechanical engineering, as you stated. I was looking around while I was in school, trying to really kind of figure out where I fit. And I couldn't really quite understand, coming out of RPI, I don't believe I fit into the traditional engineering role. And, I had a lot of different interests, a lot of different views on how I could, find passion and kind of continue on in a career with engineering. I always loved the technical side, but I had this competitive edge and, a mind towards business. And so I luckily found through the career fair there was an opportunity with the manufacturer called Train, one of the large HVAC manufacturers in the space, and they offered something called the sales engineering program, where they had the opportunity to bring exactly that, right, business world with technical acumen, and it opened up a whole world of possibilities that really didn't know. I didn't come into school thinking I'd be a salesperson. I didn't think I'd ever be a salesperson in my life, to be frank. But I got through that and kind of really understood that there was a whole market to be discovered, and had the fortunate opportunity to grow within the role there, and met a few gentlemen who we saw a need in the market to bring unique solutions to market that a large company like Train couldn't. So we went out and started a business aimed at exactly that. So we went from startup, went 0 to 60, and had the opportunity to really grow a business quite large, and had a great run doing it together. Unfortunately, not all partnerships worked out. That's a long story for another day that maybe some of you have some experience with or interest in. But I learned the hard way, we'll call it. And so, after some toil of trying to figure out what to do next, I came across the idea and opportunity of valuing and buying businesses, right? And so for me, I went out and sought small businesses in the local market within the industry that I knew, and just closed after a 2-year journey of searching, trying, and pushing. But I just closed on a business recently here in North Jersey. And so if anyone is local to North Jersey, we do residential as well as commercial HVAC. So shameless plug, but at the end of the day, it's where I've led in my journey, and it's really been a cool experience. So I'm happy to share with anybody who has interest.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, Shruti.
I do not have such a long career. I'm very early on. I started my journey at BNY Mellon, where I was working in their digital assets department, so doing traditional finance to decentralized finance. I jumped shortly after, like a year and a half in, and I IP exited a Web3 company. I sold an idea essentially, and then I started a GovTech platform, which is helping people like you and I propose policies to their elected officials. And we launched in October.
Very exciting. So I think Shruti, maybe you could give a sentence or two, because I think the pathways of the current ventures for Joe and Larry are a little bit more clear. So do you want to touch upon quick how you got into government politics from where you were?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting intersection. When I worked in Web3 with traditional finance to decentralized finance, BNY Mellon is the clearinghouse for entirety of Wall Street. So I was like the senior engineer and the only engineer in New York. And so I was talking to a lot of regulators on a day-to-day basis. And I was like, there's a huge law component that goes into almost every company who's like a startup, Uber, Lyft, what have you. Um, and then afterwards, when I jumped, I kind of had this idea. I was building it open source. And then recently, the tariffs hit my dad's company really hard. He works in gemstones. So the tariffs came down and precious gems were like on the list. And he kind of was like, oh, I really wish I could propose policies. Um, and I wish I could automate this sort of thing. And I've spoken to so many regulators. I knew that space. And I was like, I definitely can automate that. And that's how I kind of strangely enough, found myself in GovTech. But yeah, it was an insane journey. You never know where you're going to find yourself.
Yeah, it goes right into degrees of freedom. So thank you for feeding into that title. Very nice. Thank you, guys. Let's use the right mouse. Okay. So do you guys just jump in as to whether or not you've always wanted to be an entrepreneur? Let's go backwards. Let's go, Shruti. Yep.
I'm going to say I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. My dad is a business owner. My mom was a business owner. I always thought I would own my business eventually, didn't know how I was going to get there. I'm really glad that I just got a random push to get into the startup world or had initial success, which, enticed me to keep going. But yeah.
Excellent. Okay, we'll go with Joe.
Yeah. I'll be honest, it wasn't a dream of mine in any fashion or way. It's something that I've kind of fallen into, but realized that I think creating your own opportunities has been extremely exciting, right? There's highs, there's lows, but continuing to find a way to chart your own journey. What I've always found for myself is I kind of lived on the margins of what I was supposed to be doing. I always found myself in a unique position. And I think from an entrepreneurial thought process, that kind of is where you can excel and find need, right, and value and provide value. So falling into it, it wasn't something that I always thought of. Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, Larry.
Yeah, for me, I would say that I've always wanted to be my own boss and kind of take this path. Even when I was a kid, before I knew what entrepreneurship was or anything like that, I always kind of liked the idea of being in charge of my own destiny, so to speak. And once I was out and working in the real world, if you will, I got really frustrated with all of the bureaucracy and inefficiencies that exist in businesses, even in small businesses. There's just a lot of red tape that you have to go through to get anything done. And so I hated that really so much to the point that I just didn't want to do that anymore. So it was really, it was a combination of that, and then also the fact that I felt that no matter what I did or what job I had, I would never be valued the same way I valued myself or my own time. And so I wanted the flexibility to be able to do what I wanted to do and when I wanted to do it and not have to ask permission. And, if I made a mistake, I wanted that to be, I was the one who had to deal with the ramifications of that mistake. But same, if it was the right decision, then I will like the idea of having, being able to enjoy the success from that decision as well. So yeah, I would say I've always wanted to go down this path, but definitely when I started working for other companies, it became even more solidified that I wanted to do something like this.
Fair enough. Okay. And Larry, now that you're speaking, can you speak very quickly, perhaps, on sort of the compare and contrast your two businesses in terms of starting in the technical side and then being in golf caves as well?
Sure. So, when I was consulting, it was in the Oracle space. So I became sort of a subject matter expert for those of you that are familiar, in ERP systems, and specifically one called JD Edwards. So that's where I spent my whole career. And I just saw all these gaps in the market that weren't being filled. And actually, what wound up being successful in ACBM was a gap created by one of my own other products that then never actually took off. So it's weird how we get here. I mean, everybody else, I know Joe and Shruti has kind of said the same thing. You don't know how you're going to get there, and you just kind of have to go through the path. But I actually started when I started ACBM. The idea was to create an IoT solution. So I had built a solution that integrated vehicles, fleet vehicles, and equipment, like heavy construction equipment, and integrate that with the ERP system. And so I built out this whole big platform, hardware, software, this whole thing. And at the end of the day, nobody bought it. So it was, I'll say, a moderate failure. But what came out of that was, when I was building that solution, I had no way to test it. And so I built a little Excel add-in to help. You have to remember, I was doing this in New Jersey in snowstorms and everything else. And so I didn't want to have to drive around every time I wanted to test the solution. So I built an Excel add-in to allow me to start creating data in my platform and have it flow through to the end system. And I had posted a YouTube video about that, and somebody saw that and they said, that's what we need. And
Wow.
it's well, then that wound up becoming the flagship product. So something I was building to help fill a gap in my own product became bigger than the product I was originally building. So that's really how I got started in ACBM. And then we built and acquired other software platforms from there. We've acquired a reporting software. We've built a couple of other smaller pieces as well. So it's kind of grown. But we started really on that from the ACBM side. And then on the golf cave side, I kind of explained that before a little bit, in the sense that, I started working with a business coach, and really the advice that I got was to not have the business dependent on me. It wasn't even that I was trying to get myself out of the business. It's that I couldn't be the bottleneck in everything that was going on in the business. And so I needed to figure out, how do I offload what I'm doing so that it can free me up to do other things, but also not be the single choke point in anything that was going on. And so as part of that journey, I started exploring franchise opportunities, and those franchise opportunities ultimately led me to Golf Cave. I happened to be a member at another Golf Cave, and I saw that they were franchising, and I wound up becoming, I was actually the second franchisee at Golf Cave, so I got in very early with that. And now it's growing like crazy, but I was able to get in very early, and then like I said, my first one did pretty well, and I opened the second one, and pretty soon I'll be looking to start on number three.
Excellent. Okay. Oh, so it looks like the poll, you have a little smattering of stages. That's cool.
I'm not able to see. Oh, there it goes. Okay.
Got it. Okay. Let's see. Okay, let me move my things. Okay, thank you. All right, everyone's wondering. Can you guys tell us, let's go the other order. So we'll start with uh Larry again. Sorry, Larry. How has AI affected you and your business so far?
Um, so it's interesting. AI is permeating everywhere. So on the ACBM side, it is very much impacting our ability to compete with larger companies, especially like on the reporting software side. So we acquired this enterprise grade reporting system, and it was traditionally supported by a large team of developers that ultimately got neglected. But what wound up happening is we retained one developer, and we're now outputting more code with, of course, with the use of AI than a whole team of six developers was doing before. And that one person's actually only even half time there. So I have one half-time resource that's outputting more than six full-time developers, just a few years ago. Um, so on the ACBM side, it's very prevalent. On the golf cave side, it's also prevalent but different. So in golf cave, AI exists within the simulator systems, but I think what's coming in the future is going to be even more interesting as they start getting into swing analysis. And I guess I didn't really talk about what Golf Cave is. So for those of you that don't know, Golf Cave is an indoor, it's an indoor golfing facility that we have. So you have these private rooms, and we have state-of-the-art TrackMan simulators that replicate on-course experience about as close as you could possibly get to being on course. So very, very realistic and very accurate in terms of the data and analytics that you get as part of this. So back to AI, where I see it coming in the very near future is being able to, I don't want to say replace an instructor, but definitely moving closer towards that where we're able to analyze your swing and give you concrete drills and analysis of your swing to help you improve. And they do have that to some extent already. They have an AI assistant called Tracy, and you take a bunch of swings and she'll give you feedback and tell you what to work on and stuff. But I see that progressing very quickly in the near future.
Awesome. Joe, AI.
Yeah, AI is again prevalent, as I think we all know. I think the two big use cases that we've seen that we're leaning into heavily, well, I'll give you three, but there's kind of the technician side and then there's the customer journey side, right? And so for us, the technician side, there's actually some good use cases around helping diagnose and replace, kind of that experienced technician that is a mythical legend at some point, right? Because there's a lot of retirement that's going on. There's a lot of knowledge that lives in the individual and is not necessarily out in the public, right? And so that use case in helping to train as well as helping to have a resource that we can rely upon is somewhere I think that still needs a lot more development, but is coming stronger as we go, as well as solving some other issues around communication and, writing service tickets. If we have a Spanish speaker and we want to write it in English, we can talk to type now. And that helps a lot of that side of the technician journey. But the secondary side is really, the primary side for us is really on the customer journey. AI is very prevalent in phone answering. So making sure we never miss a call, replacing call centers in a lot of cases. helping us book calls at any time of day, as well as, helping us do capacity planning and really driving through the core of the business where we as humans just struggle. That's the reality of it. And so it's been impactful for sure.
Awesome.
I think I'm coming at this the opposite way, where I'm not just utilizing AI, but also selling it.
Yeah.
My company is a vertical AI company. In terms of also like the lay of the land has changed significantly in just like the last couple of months with the new LLMs, the new like the companies are iterating so fast. Like I think there was Anthropic releases at least 72 new features every week. So the rate of change for all things AI and like the biggest company right now is like iterating faster than a small company, then there's a problem. But it's also changed like VCs and the entire startup ecosystem has changed significantly in the last couple of months. But yeah, it's affected everything around us.
Sounds about right. Thank you guys. Okay, let me scroll. Okay, so going back to the RPI thing. We're all dying to know how RPI prepared you guys for this journey thus far. Can we start with you, Shruti?
Oh, I feel so bad. I think Joe was in the middle every single time. Um,
I'll switch it up. I
uh,
wasn't going to, but now that you pointed out, I will.
RPI did. I was one of the COVID kids. I spent college and 2.5 years of mine were all inside and we had COVID. Um, and we didn't have like the incubators and accelerators that we do have now. Um, so I did get a world-class education in computer science. But yeah, I'll pass it on to the people who have more acceleration experience and what.
Okay, let's go. Yeah, let's go with Joe. You're already unmuted.
Take the sandwich. It's fine.
It's okay. All right.
It's okay. It's not a big deal. How did RPI prepare me? I think in reality, it prepared me from utilizing resources, right? I think there was a lot of, I didn't find exactly right what's led me to my career in that way. So it's hard to draw a direct comparison, but I think it was a lot of the softer skills that I learned, right? And almost to the point of where I kind of started the journey. It's like I knew I wasn't exactly in the right major, maybe in the right field, and kind of always just trying to figure it out and trying to constantly like dig through and like find other ways of bringing in the things that I liked. I think almost in a way forced me to get creative and get outside the box and find something that fit, right? And so it led me down that journey. And, I think, from the other sides of just, I was an athlete there, one who was injured quite often, that I think, RPI unfortunately didn't give me that necessarily, but it created some grit, right? And obviously gave me the opportunity to learn how to deal with adversity in that same way. So, yeah.
So from my side, I think there's probably a lot more resources available at RPI than I probably knew about, or certainly that I took advantage of. And I think also being younger and being at the time definitely a lot more introverted, I did not seek out a lot of these things that existed out there. But the thing that I'll say that I really did get from RPI that's been helpful is the sort of critical thinking and problem solving ability. And that is applicable anywhere, no matter what you're doing, right? So that whole engineering mindset, the whole problem solving metrics or things that you learn at RPI, you can carry them with you and apply them anywhere. Um, I remember when I was consulting, I was really young. I don't know, 22, probably, yeah, I was 22 years old, working at like my second client ever. And I didn't really know what I was doing, but I knew enough to know how to figure out whatever I needed to do. And I was on a call with the CFO of they were a multi-billion dollar client at the time, private company too. And after the call, they said, there's 1,000 people or more than that, people with the same skill set that I have. But they said the thing that really stood out to them was that no matter what the issue was, I could kind of figure it out and I knew how to solve that problem. And so that really stuck with me as a strength that I really try to lean on it and rely on now. And I think that directly comes from RPI. I think that there are a lot of other schools that, even again, even if they teach engineering, I don't think they teach you how to think about it in the same way or how to approach problems in the same way. And so that's something I'm truly grateful for from RPI.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And just to quickly add on, I was not a stellar student while I was at RPI, so it did teach me how to fail and then get back
Yeah,
up. So yeah.
love that.
That's the most
Also,
important thing. Oh,
I want to echo all three of those statements now because that was,
Excellent.
yeah, Eric has his hand up. I see that.
Yeah.
So thank you for this. And for anybody that I don't know on the call or doesn't know me, my name is Eric Ledette. I'm an alum of RPI, but I also currently serve as director of RPI's Severino Center, a role that I took on about a year and a half ago. And the Severino Center for Technological Entrepreneurship got a complete reboot in 2024, along with the formation of the Office of Strategic Alliances and Translation. And so there's a lot of new resources, a lot of things have gotten rebooted as well. And so it's now my job to provide resources to students and innovators. So you guys got asked the question, what did RPI prepare you for? And I'll ask the opposite question because this is my job now. What do you wish that RPI had done? Or when you look at what the skill set that you wish, a 22-year-old who might have entrepreneurial aspirations, what do you think would be an effective thing for us to be doing? What are some priorities? If you could go back now and wish a resource upon RPI, what would you wish?
Great question. Thank you.
I have one. Back when I graduated in the last century, there was no such thing as leadership development skills training. I know there's an emphasis on some of that today through the Archer Center and some other things. I know that the Lally School has started a couple of things. I think it's imperative that we teach leadership training development or have leadership training development programs.
Thanks, John. Wants to jump in on the
I'll jump in. I
yeah.
think from my side, there was such a core focus on technical, exactly like Larry said, right? And I think you're spot on, Larry, that it brings us to that point where we can go solve problems. Something that I have been struggling with and learning through my career, and I don't know that any school truly focuses on it. But if you're going to be an entrepreneur or business owner in any certain capacity, honestly, even as you move up most corporate ladders, you are selling. You're selling to your internal team as a leadership development, as John said, or you're selling externally. And being able to find ways of connecting with people and really understanding what a sales psychology looks like, that's something that some people have naturally, some don't, but you actually have to learn that in the corporate career. And having an advanced start on that, if you truly have that kind of passion. I know, Eric, you've done pitch competitions, like there's an art to that. And so I think really leaning into that, if people have that interest, it's something that can be taught.
So I'm also going to jump in, but on the practical side of, when you're fundraising for a startup, just being cognizant of like what you're signing away and like equity dilution, like what terms you should be agreeing to, safe notes versus a different type of equity you're giving away, whatnot. Also in terms of like being a recent graduate, having access to alumni that are in like bigger accelerators. Like I'm constantly on the lookout for accelerators. And I don't have the alumni network necessarily that are, oh, they're in PairX or they're in YComb, even though we have students in Y Combinator right now. And just like angel checks that are coming in from our RPI alumni and having like being able to sit in front of like a bunch of alumni and take advantage of like mentorship, someone who's done it. Because we have very, very reputable people in our alumni, like Curtis Priam is one of them. And like the list goes on. So yeah, just being able to take advantage of those.
Yeah, and I appreciate all those things, and I'm happy to report that a lot of these things are stuff that we're working on. We have a new incubator program that we launched We have now the next level of maturity. We call it our activator program. If you're a chemist, these terms make sense. But anyway, so we have our incubator program, our activator program. And then in a few months, we will have our new accelerator, regional accelerator. And we're working on a lot of these skills, customer discovery, going out, Joe, to your point, selling it from the very beginning. Foundation is all about, and then building the leadership. Was that John, to your point? We're working on, some people are natural leaders, some people can work at it, some people need to go out and find a partner. They're always going to be more of the technical competency, and we're working on that. And I will brag for 1 second, and then Larry, I'd love to hear what you have to say and anybody else as well. But we're in the midst right now of the New York State Business Plan competition. And we just rolled out all these new programs, incubator, activator, within the last year, right? The incubator program was relaunched last year in the spring 2025. The activator program, we launched it this spring in January of this year. So the first cohort is going through. We're in the middle of the New York State Business Plan competition. The last several years, the number of teams that RPI has gotten through the regional round was 0. And this year, this is just last week, hot off the presses, of the 10 teams total that went through from our region, 6 of them are RPI. So, innovation is alive and well, and the students are really taking well to our programs. But I'd love to hear what else, are the important things, what are the gaps, what's missing, so we can continue to fill those.
Yeah. So first of all, that's awesome. That's fantastic and incredible progress in a really short amount of time, it sounds like. So that's incredible. Um, for me, and kind of piggybacking on what Shruti said before as well, is you kind of have to learn how to fail. And so I promise I'll bring this back, Eric, to some specific things here. But for me, I didn't just like start ACBM and it took off and worked, right? I had at least 3 other companies prior to this that I tried to do, and they all failed. And there were various different things all over the place. And what was interesting is in all 3 of them, I had a working product. So from a technical perspective, we were totally fine. And these were good products that solved real problems. Um, but I didn't know how to launch the company. And so what happened was I had gone back and this was also sort of by accident, but I had gone back to grad school and I went and got my MBA. I went to NYU. I did that whole thing. And it was the perfect complement to what I had done at RPI from the technical side. And I was able to certainly get a little bit more of the sales and marketing. So to echo what Joe had said before, that is the most important thing. You can build the best product in the world, but if you can't sell it, even if it solves a problem for somebody, they don't always know that it solves a problem for them. And if you don't know how to sell it and how to show them that it solves their problem, you're not going to go anywhere. So I can't stress out of everything, the sales and marketing is probably the hardest part to do. I always thought it was a technical piece. I suffered from the if you build it, they will come syndrome, right? And that's kind of, I think, how I was always programmed. And so I built it and nobody came several times. So it was really tough. But in addition to the sales and marketing, I would definitely say the accounting and finance side. So I know, sure, you touched on the finance, a little bit from the investment side, finance side of things. But definitely the accounting too. I graduated at RPI and I didn't know what a journal entry was or debits or credits or the most basic fundamental building block of business. And so, and by the way, that was my consulting. I was going out and designing chart of accounts. So I had to learn pretty quickly. But it's just, I think that creating, creating different topics that you need to be able to become, I don't want to say you have to become a master, but you certainly have to become uh, literate in all these different things, legal as well as another one, right? So certainly I'm not going to come out of RPI and be a lawyer, but it would have been helpful to understand the basic premise behind contracts and how to read them and stuff like that. So, a little bit of at least enough so that you could talk to a lawyer, right? And all these things. I'm not going to become an accountant. I'm not going to become a CPA, but I need to be able to talk to them. So just being able to have the ability to understand sales and marketing and understand accounting and understand finance and understand legal and all these other pieces would be extremely helpful, I think.
I'll actually throw in a shout out, Larry. Some of my favorite classes that I took were in the management classes. And so I did some of my electives in the management school, and I got the chance to do accounting, and I got the chance to do the Socratic method, like law class. And they're foundational in things that I know today, right? And it was pretty cool. But I think a lot of engineers didn't have the opportunity to take those classes or seek them, and that therein lies the challenge.
Joe,
Yeah,
I would double up on what you're saying. I got my degree at RPI it was called management engineering. Now it's the industrial and systems engineering department. And I took all of those courses, everything from personnel management through to production engineering and accounting and so on. And when I got out of school, I took some graduate courses in accounting and some other things. So yeah, those kinds of skill sets are extremely important. I think there was one course I took on engineering law.
I think it's pretty interesting that I think I heard at least two of you had some degree in economics from RPI when you started. I don't know, Shruti, maybe you didn't. But I think that was pretty interesting. I also was an electrical engineering major, economics minor, then went back, got my MBA. Now I had started my own company, totally different from my original degree, but um, I think that I echo all those things. When I was at RPI, I didn't want to have anything to do with anything that was anything like sales. Um, and it turns out that what I've learned in life is that everything is sales. I just didn't know.
Fervent nods. I love it.
And I think if I can just say one more thing, and then Ray, I promise I'll stop hijacking your
Nope.
meeting here.
No.
And I think we are doing things in the activator programs or the second tier, so that they know what P&L is, they know what a cash flow statement looks like, things like that. Not so that they're going to be their own CFOs, but to your points, that they can sort of talk the talk. Let me just say one more thing. Again, I'm going to get another plug in here. I think you said role models. One of you said role models and networking. I think that's really key. Larry, I'm interested in more. You talked about how you have a mentor, an advisor now, and Joe and Shruti, I'm kind of interested in how you have sort of learned this process. But we have been slowly rolling out a resource for RPI, for the entrepreneurship community in RPI, called the Brain Trust. And we're asking, people, alums, people like you who have wisdom and experience, if you're willing to, give maybe 1 to 2 hours per month pro bono of your time, knowing that most months it'll be zero, right? But if we need somebody who has expertise in a certain area, can they reach out to you? We've put together some resources, our venture advisor team, we call that our adventure team. And we have 4 people who are doing day-to-day advising with the startups. But when they need expertise that's deep in a particular sector, have a particular question, we want to grow this brain trust and be able to point our students, our faculty, to it. So maybe I'll say look for a message from me. We're overhauling the website for the Severino Center right now, so don't go there and look at it. It's ugly at the moment. But if I send you guys a message, with some info about the Brain Trust, I would love it if you guys could get on and maybe share some of your wisdom. But if I can turn that into a question, Larry and Joe and Trudy, can you talk a little bit more about how you're learning the skills, what the role of mentorship is for you guys?
Yeah, I guess I'll jump in first here. So, yeah, so I did mention I hired a business coach. What I found was I was getting to a point where I had questions and I didn't know where to go for answers. So I think it's a similar problem to what you're trying to solve as well. And so I wanted to find someone that had kind of done it before. And so I hired a business coach. I didn't quite know what to expect. Um, I guess I was expecting that it was somebody that I could ask a question, they would give me like a definitive answer, and that's not what the business coach turned out to be. What wound up happening is it did help me in the sense that it created exposure to a larger network than I had by myself. So I was able to connect with other people for certain things when I needed them, which was extremely helpful. But more than that, what it did was it set a structure and some targets and milestones and held me accountable to hit them. So it's not that I went to my business coach and I said, I have this problem, how do I solve it? That they didn't really do that for me. As nice as it might have been to have that, what they really did is said, these are all the things you need to do. This is, you need to hit them, and they held me accountable. And I think just creating some structure around certain things, and then of course the accountability, I think that became really, really helpful for me. It was something that I was missing. That was for the ACBM side. So I'll just take another 30 seconds and answer it on the Golf Cave side. Actually, my business coach, he is a franchise broker as well, even though he had nothing to do with getting me set up in Golf Cave, but he owned two franchised businesses himself, something totally different. They were Stretch Labs. But it was similar enough that he could give me some guidance on that as well. So that was helpful. But in terms of the sort of support group on the Golf Cave side, that's really one of the beautiful things about the franchise. I didn't have to reinvent the wheel, but I was able to iteratively improve upon it. So, um, we had both of my locations are top locations in the Golf Cave franchise. So I'm happy about that. But it was really because I was able to start with an amazing foundation, and then wherever I saw improvement, they let me make those improvements and go from there. But whenever I had questions or like, have you tried this? Have you thought about that? I had this group now. Originally, it was just the corporate stores or whatever that they had, and that was helpful in and of itself. But now there's over 10 franchisees, and so we can all bounce ideas off each other, and we're sort of all in it together. We're not we're not exactly on the same team, but we're not competing either, and we want the whole brand to lift up. And so that was something that I wasn't expecting. That's kind of unique from a franchise perspective, and something that I definitely can or wouldn't ever have on the ACBM side. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I'll talk from my perspective. Coming up in my early career was 100% commission sales, and it was a fairly cutthroat environment. So while I had peers and whatnot, we were all kind of pursuing like our own individualistic endeavors, and I didn't really seek out peer networks as much. And wow, I wish I did, because as I kind of came out of my last venture and now found myself looking to do things that I had never done before, I found a community. There's a community of business buyers looking at small businesses. The more and more I got plugged into that community, the more people I've met who, everyone's willing to help each other, which is incredible because I learned things that would have taken me, another MBA, which I didn't get. And I basically had my own mini MBA that I went and learned through other people and networking and finding content and just continuing to have better conversations. So I got to a point where I felt very comfortable now that I've gone and executed, and also have executed in a prior business career. I've actually gotten to the point of offering services to other people that I know in small businesses looking to do similar things. And so I've actually gone out and consulted myself. And it's just the joy of sharing that knowledge back and forth. And I'm seeking others who have done it before as well, at larger scales. And so constantly networking to try and find new people and just offering conversations just like this. That was kind of the intent. And one of the things I talked with Raya was how cool it would be to tap into the RPI network and the RPI alumni. Say, I know there's other business owners on this call. You guys have actually already said it, to have kind of that roundtable peer network to bounce things off of. And of course, supporting the students coming out as well. But even just the experienced alumni, I think, would be a very interesting opportunity.
Yeah, Eric, I'm super excited about Brain Trust. I can't wait to offer my very limited expertise, but also take advantage of it. Similar to, I'm going to feel like the local tech bro, but I found a couple of hacker houses that I stayed in. I also found two accelerators in New York that I'm a part of. And I also actually reached out to Eric and Raya very early on before I started my company, just like bouncing the ideas off. It's crazy what LinkedIn Premium can get you. I was my entire advisory board was very bold text messages over LinkedIn to like ex-CEOs and stuff like that, and two of them actually bit. I have like the father of NFTs on my board now, so that's super cool. Even like the girl, like the founder of Girls Who Code is on my board, which is really exciting. Yeah, LinkedIn Premium is great, but even better is going to be Eric's Brain Trust. So.
Cool. So thank you for that. What I'd like to do, Ray, if it's possible, I'll send
Yeah.
you some info, and if you can distribute it
Yeah.
out to the whole chapter. And one other plug that I'll get in, and then I promise I will stop talking, is that on April 24th on campus, that's a Friday, 3:30 in the afternoon. And again, Ray, I'll send you an information on
Yeah,
this.
please do.
We are having the inaugural, what we call Innovator Network event. And we're branding that as connecting generations of RPI innovators. And I would love to get everybody that's on this call to come back to campus and again, make some connections. Number one, we're going to showcase some of the best startups on campus right now. And then we're hoping to also have alumni share some of their stories. And then we're going to do some networking and hope to make some connections. You all are invited to that. Ray, I'll send you some information on it, but it's April 24th, 3:30 in the afternoon in the Biotech Center. So hope to see you guys there, and I'll send more information about that and the Brain Trust to be emailed out.
Awesome. I will send
Thank you.
everyone that information. Thank you, Eric. And also I know Joe, you guys are taking all my notes. Joe, you did bring up the peer group, but if we're leveraging the resources at Troy and also doing something local, that's sort of what the chapter is really into, so we can facilitate all those things. So all this information will be sent to you guys as well as the link to the recording, and all that good stuff. So thank you everyone for chiming in. This is exactly what I was envisioning, so it's great. But now I don't know where I am in my notes. Let me see. Okay. It's gonna be a wordy one. But I went over it with the speakers, so they all bought in. So I read a book recently called The Score, and the author, whose name escapes me, speaks about goal versus purpose. And he speaks of it from a standpoint of playing a game, right? Why do we play games? Why do we play a game on hard mode and torture ourselves, right? And you have different types of players, achievement players versus striving players, etc. But the goal versus purpose thing I've been thinking about since, because I think your goal and your purpose may be the same, maybe not when you walk onto campus. Thank you, Shruti. Um, Maybe the same on campus, right? Your goal is to graduate to become a mechanical engineer, right? Those are so things are sort of in line. Whereas as CT Nguyen talks about it, he says your goal in playing a game with your friends, your goal is to win, but your purpose is to have fun with your friends, right? And so I am tossing it to the speakers to talk about what their goals versus purposes were when they stepped onto campus, what they are now, and how they're different. So let's start with Joe, because I know you're into the sandwich, but we'll mix it up a little bit.
All right, fine. Yeah, I'd say when I stepped onto campus, it was probably very basic at the time. I think I had more dreams of at the time I was kind of very into like physical therapy and stuff like that. So I was looking at maybe my good goal would be to help people in that way, right? And to become design physical therapy equipment in some way, and with the purpose of aiding and helping people, of course, having a job. But I don't think I thought so far down the road, right? And as that's evolved and kind of gotten into, we'll call it mid-career at this point, and the journey that I just went on, it's become a lot more of, the goal is to build a successful business, but the purpose is to find ways to buy back time and create freedom. And I think, I want to establish that for my growing family, as well as, for my own sanity and where I want to accomplish in life and accessing life in a different way than I've been able to prior. So it's getting more meaningful as we go.
Excellent. I love that. Okay, Shruti, you're next on my screen, so I'm going to throw it to you.
I don't have a good answer. I think during
That's okay.
RPI, my goal was to like just make it day to day. And I think my goal right now is also just to make it day to day.
Fair.
Yeah, I mean the tagline of RPI, like why not change the world, really stuck with me. It's what drew me to RPI in the first place. Crazy amounts of innovation that have changed the world have come out of there, and I aspired for the same thing. So that's my purpose across the work that I do. It's in hopes of changing the world.
Okay, Larry.
Yeah, I don't have anything profound here either, but when I was at RPI, my goal was really just to do well enough that I could get a stable job and where I could learn new things. Now my goal and purpose is different. So I guess my goal is to continue to expand the businesses that I'm either creating or acquiring or however I get there. I'm not quite sure yet, but my purpose is really to build this infrastructure or network of businesses that are can all sort of help each other in some degree, whether it's in the back end or maybe there's other synergies that eventually come up. Um, but I really want to be able to create companies and environments where people can get what they want out of it and that they can enjoy what they're doing. I mean, I can tell you at all my business, I mean, I really like all the people that work with me at all of my companies, and I enjoy being around them. I think they enjoy being around me. But
Really?
it's I think it's a little different from a lot of these other bigger businesses that seem a lot more transactional. At my second golf cave location, it's a long story. I'm going to skip it, but a customer was there, and I eventually got to speak with this customer, and they told me that everybody that works there just really loves being there, and they do. Like to me, the thing that I love the most is when the employees of those companies are in there using the simulator, using it. Like, yes, it helps them learn and understand it more, but they actually enjoy being there, and so when they're not working, they're coming in and they're playing golf, and that's what it's supposed to be about. We try to make coming in being the best part of anybody's day, and that goes for the employees as well. So, yeah, I want to build and be a part of more businesses like that.
Excellent. Love it. Those were good answers, guys. Thank you. I'm going to ask all the panels that, so everyone will suffer with you, but thank you for being guinea pigs. Okay, let me see where I'm at. All right. Okay, so for this portion, our speakers threw questions to each other, so I'm just going to tee those up for you guys. Golf joke. So, Joe asked of his fellow speakers, and he'll describe it himself as well. Can you tell us about the size of your teams currently, and if you have any quick thoughts on team building in general? So, Joe, do you want to start with that one?
Oh, sure.
Sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, so my team is currently our team of 15, a mix between technicians, blue collar workforce, and office staff. I think coming from the engineering degreed world, right, and working with degreed engineers primarily, but also selling to contractors at the same time, I think it's been a real leadership challenge in how to grow culture when most of your staff is not present and also not connected, right? I think in most cultures and business today, you're either on Zoom and remote and constantly interacting, or you're present in an office environment. And so having technicians that are constantly in the field doing independent work is really hard to bring that culture the way you want to. And I'm very open to advice at this point in time, but it's been a unique challenge, right? And just even getting people to communicate in general. So hosting more meetings and bringing people together it's the old school method, but it works, right? And I think that's the way I'm continuing to grow and solve the challenge, but trying to get innovative with it as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Larry, since you're unmuted.
So all three of my current businesses, they're all small businesses. I think the largest one is 10 people. So what I found is that, well, if you grow too large, then you have to start implementing those different layers of management and bureaucracy and red tape that I despise, and the whole reason why I got out of that to begin with. So for me, I'd rather grow by having additional businesses rather than take one business and grow it larger. So I guess for me, I kind of see the long-term vision as being, um, you know, up to maybe 9 different entities, but each one being small, 10 people or less, rather than having 100-person company. So I just find that I can operate more effectively that way, and I can still sort of stay true to the core values that got me out of, those larger companies to begin with. And I also just don't think my personality and my background doesn't lend itself to leading a large organization like that. I think I'm much better in smaller groups. And so the ability to stay in those sort of smaller 10-person teams, there's a trade-off there. There's some things that would make it more challenging, but I think on the whole, I think for me personally, I think it'd be much better off that way.
Perfect. Okay,
I have a very lofty team of 5 women, which I'm really excited about. I'm at that point where I'm not necessarily a leader, but more of a teammate. All of the people that I've brought on are smarter than me, better than me, and like they own their verticals. I trust that they're doing what they need to do better than me. Like, you know what they say, like the best leaders hire people smarter than them to do the job. I'm trying to embody that and, you know, trying to take feedback. I think the biggest thing I've learned is saying we before I, because we're a team. And yeah, I'm trying to, as we scale, I think I'm going to try to continue that.
excellent. Thank you. Unmute. Okay, I'm not muted. Cool. Let's see, since my computer stopped working. Okay, so this one's from Larry, specifically to Joe. Since you've gotten experience in doing both, can you contrast quickly, or maybe not so quickly, the startup experience versus acquisitions?
It's a night and day difference.
Yeah.
Startup world is a grind, right? And I think Shruti is going through right now. We've seen the pain on her face, but it's an exciting journey and a lovely journey, right? The payoff at the end, especially when it's successful, I think is just, it's a great feeling, right? And so hopefully you exit Shruti. But I think for me, starting from the beginning, the biggest compare and contrast is just a simple fact that I had customers after acquiring. I was talking about this today, and someone was telling me, "Hey, we don't know what we necessarily bought. Like, it's a little less than we thought." I'm like, "Listen, everything's easy to build into because the phone is ringing and the customers are calling, and I have business today." That is a huge difference from trying to start a business where we had to create a reputation, talk about who we are, get people to believe in us, trust in us. Those take years from a trust perspective, at least in the industry that I came from, where especially a lot of business was repeat business and people had been working with the same people for 20, 30 years. Here I was with a new technology and a new kid off the block, and that's a really tough proposition. And so that took a solid 5 years to feel like we had solid ground to move through. And acquiring is not that. So that is, I think it's a great evolution in my journey. And I think to Larry's point, right, acquiring can get you up to speed a hell of a lot faster. And so what I didn't know in the roles that I came from was that acquiring was a path, right? And that it was an attainable path, whether you have a pre-existing business or not. And so learning that skill set is invaluable for me.
Excellent.
While I haven't acquired anything, I hope to one day. I can speak to something that's like on a tangent. I started investing in companies via a group called Comma Capital. It's a VC fund. And it's also really interesting how like the acquiring space, the investing space, and the starting like the business, they're so vastly different. Yeah, VC is also a route that you can go down if you want to be in the entrepreneurship. You can just be on the investor side on the different like on the cap table instead of like starting the table itself.
Fair enough. Great point. Thank you. Okay, and speaking of Shruti, your question, and we'll have you start. That's okay. What is a development, innovation, or change you'd like to see in the hopefully near future, whether it's in your current space or in general for entrepreneurship?
I don't remember what I was thinking when I asked this, but definitely
Okay.
I've been very AI pilled lately. Like the innovations that have been coming out have been incredible, like beyond just like LLMs and stuff. We see a lot of agentic AI stuff. Like this social media called Mold came out, which was social media just for agentic AIs. So as we see the shape of the internet entirely change in front of us, yeah, maybe that's what I was thinking. What do you guys want to see next?
Nice.
Haven't thought that far just yet. But I would love someone who can do proposals for me. So, I mean, I think AI tools, of course, is just where you're leaning towards, but how they apply and to what level, I think, is, of course, where the innovation is, and the use cases will continue to change, of course.
Any thoughts, Larry?
I don't have a whole lot for this either.
Okay.
I guess I would just say it would be really nice to have a way. I guess this does lean towards AI too, but just to be able to find when there's a gap in your business, just have an easy way to figure out how to fill that gap, whether that be another system or people or whatever it is. But have an easier path to there, and maybe that's actually like the advisory boards and the other stuff that we're talking about. Maybe just being able to have the network to get those
Yeah.
answers that you need when you don't know, and that's something that I think I'm missing right now that I wish I had. Well, for both sides, I would love to participate if there's
Great.
anybody that can help. But I think for myself, it would be helpful to have that peer group to lead me in the right direction if I'm missing something.
Excellent. Okay, we're gonna work on it. Um, let's see. Okay, now we're on to the next part. Um, Joe. I guess we'll start with Joe. What's a common, nope, what's a misconception you had going into your entrepreneurial life, and what's one you've noticed that others continue to have constantly?
Yeah, I think from just exactly where I've been right now, it feels like the entrepreneur, the idea of that. You think of Mark Zuckerberg, you think of Elon Musk, you think of the titans of the industry.
Yep.
You got three right here that I think we're starting pretty small, and it doesn't take a giant idea. I know our tagline is why change? Why not change the world? You don't have to. You can still be an entrepreneur, and you can still be a part of it. And I think that's the misconception that I think gets construed a lot, where you have to have a giant idea in order to be an entrepreneur, but you don't. Um, any business owner is an entrepreneur in my mind. And I think it doesn't take a lot of money and it doesn't take giant ideas. And so if you have an inkling that you want to jump in, jump in.
Excellent. Larry, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, originally I was going to talk about the whole. I think we already covered what I was going to say, but it was originally going to be around, if you have the solution that people will buy it, and that's not really the case, right? You really have to learn how to sell it and everything. But I think I'll pivot to the other misconception I had was I didn't understand there are some people that are so good and supportive and happy for you and willing to help you. Then there's a lot of other people that are really, really negative. And I guess I wasn't prepared for how many people were going to say that won't work or, why are you wasting your time with that or things like that. It was interesting when I opened my second golf cave, we had done an ad on Facebook and somebody posted a comment on it saying they guaranteed I'd be out of business in less than 6 months, and we hadn't even opened yet. And so I wasn't ready for that kind of negativity, especially because my first one had done so well. And in truth, the second one's doing better than the first one, so they were wrong, thankfully. But that you have to have a really thick skin because there's a lot more of that than I thought there was going to be. When I started ACBM, or actually even now, when I tell people I guess it's like my own little personal experiment, but when people ask me what I do, I'll either tell them about ACBM or Golf Cave. And whatever I tell them, whether I tell them it's ACBM, they're like, well, what else do you do? Or something like that. Like it's not, and the same thing on the Golf Cave side. When I say, oh, I own an indoor golf facility, they say, well, you can't make enough from that. What else are you doing? And so like nobody, it's just interesting that no matter what I tell them, people are always saying, well, what else is there? That can't be it. And so you have to, in reality, any one of those businesses would stand perfectly fine on its own. And people just they they trivialize or belittle those businesses. And like I said, I just wasn't ready for that when I started any of them. But now I guess you become used to it, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. Alrighty. Shruti, what you got for misconceptions?
I think that like after leaving my job in corporate world, I was like, oh, I'm gonna stop working 40 hours a week. Now I'm gonna have like a completely different lifestyle. I think in order to not work 40 hours a week, I am putting in 90 hours a week. I work on Sundays. I'm in the office from like 9 to 8. It's really interesting because it's like a concept that you have to like will into existence every single day. Like it doesn't exist without you. And also, I think that, yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of work. And I'm sure a lot of people in this call know that it's a lot of work. Um, yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so let's talk about what the best piece of advice you've ever gotten is, and what's a piece of advice you'd like to give out for free tonight.
Yeah, I mean they're the same thing, right? So it I read this book a while ago. It was from my old boss. He the one who gave it to me, and the book is called The Power of the Obvious. But in the book, it follows this executive. He was an executive at Amex and Macy's and all these other things. But um, I guess it sort of embodies the whole notion of the simplest solution is usually the right one. But I feel like we're, especially in the society today, there's filled with buzzwords and jargon and all this stuff, and people overcomplicate simple problems all the time. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't big problems that need all this additional work, but there's a lot of things that are can be solved very simply. So in the book, the example that he gave, I think this is great. I think this is genius. He was working at Macy's at the time, and they had a problem where all of, or not all, there was a big spike in returns due to damage and delayed shipments. And so what he decided to do was, most people before him, they couldn't figure out how to solve this problem, and people were looking at spreadsheets and all this analytics and all this stuff, and they couldn't get anywhere, and they couldn't figure it out. And the answer was so obvious. He said, I'm just going to follow an order from when it was placed all the way till when it's delivered at somebody's house. So, and of course, in hindsight, it's so obvious, but that's what he did. So he watched the order come through when it was placed. He watched it get picked, put on a conveyor belt, goes down, and then all of a sudden it gets to the chute where it has to go down 7 floors to the sub basement. And so everybody's looking at him to see, well, what is this guy going to do? And his thought process was, well, if the products aren't supposed to get damaged, then I shouldn't get damaged either. So the guy jumped down the chute and he goes down 7 floors. And of course he got banged up and bruised, but and there's more to the story from this, but the main takeaway is he saw exactly what was happening to the packages and he knew firsthand exactly why they were getting damaged. So sometimes the answer is so obvious and right in front of you, and don't overcomplicate it with all this other stuff. Just go and see what the actual problem is and find it and solve it. I mean, the solution becomes apparent once you do that. So I love that advice. I love that book. And yeah, I think it's important to be able to know how to take a step back to solve problems like that.
Okay, Joe, what do you have for advice?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's actually similar to, I think there's a Toyota story, very similar. Their motto is to go to the problem. You have to see it, you have to feel it. My advice that I've always been given is focusing on what you can control. And I think, there's so much out of your control, like going through a sales career and things of that nature. Like you're told no 90% of the time, 80% of the time. You can't control that. You can only focus on what you can control, getting better and within yourself and controlling the variables that you're given, right? And I think that as long as you keep that as your focus, the rest is noise, and the chips will fall where they fall, right? And I think it's hard to do. It's easy to say, but it really kind of grounds you and centers you. And then kind of the advice I've been given recently to one of my consultant clients, but also some of my team is don't ever be apologetic for providing value. I think in a lot of cases, some people don't know their worth or don't have the confidence in their worth, and it then translates into a whole host of other things, right? And I think it's like, no, we know what we're talking about. We provide value, and we should be, valued for that. And I think that's just something that's centric in my business mind right now, and where I'm focused on bringing people to the next level.
Yeah. I think I'm going to talk to a little bit of Larry's point about people being negative. One of the things I learned very quickly is that if they're not your ICP, don't fucking listen to them. Like if they're not buying from you, don't care. Stop talking about features and stuff inside a room with your team. Ask your customer if they don't want it, don't build it. Like I think there's a lot of value in like just giving out gift cards to coffee and figuring out what people like, what they don't like, because as the problem's super important and so is like the customer. And at the end of the day, you're like trying to sell. So as close as you can get to the customer and the problem, I would say just do that.
Excellent. Alrighty. So now we're at some audience questions that were submitted ahead of time upon registration. I'm going to start with Niraj's question, specifically for Larry, but I invite everyone to jump in. And Niraj's question is, how do you manage risk when it comes to launching a new venture? Did you read or listen to a book on risk management? Also, do you have any advice on how to hire the right people?
Yeah. So it's actually part of his question is a joke. It's a Seinfeld reference for those of you who know. There was an episode where George had put on his resume that he was an expert in risk management, but of course he didn't know anything about it, and then he decided to mentor Jerry's girlfriend to teach him mismanagement by reading a book. So that's the backstory to that question. But I think underneath that, I think that there is a real theme there, a real question when it comes to managing risk, and it's really hard. So it's I think it's I haven't acquired a business yet, but I've started several, and as I said before, three of them failed. So there's a huge amount of risk when you do a startup, right? It's very binary. It either works or it doesn't. And unfortunately, my first three didn't, and my fourth one did, and it became pretty successful. Um, you know, when it came time to, I guess I will say this though too, from a risk perspective, with your startups, especially when you're bootstrapping the startup, your risk is just your own time. So it's a lot easier, especially when you're younger. Now, of course, I didn't have all the tools when I first started to be able to do it. And that's, I think, a large part of why they failed. I don't know if they would succeed now with the knowledge that I gained. They may still have failed. We'll never know. It's an interesting thought process or, thing to go down. But
Mhm.
back to the managing risk, the whole reason why I decided to do a franchise was to mitigate the risk. So certainly indoor golf, right? When I was evaluating Golf Cave, I looked at other franchises and I looked at the possibility of doing it on my own. And there's nothing super novel or innovative in this indoor golf space. There's plenty of things that exist like that. I think that we do some things better, but it doesn't stop anybody else from doing it as well. And so I think when it comes to managing risk, it's when I did the franchise, they were very capital intensive, way more than you would think to open one of these things. And I basically risked my entire life savings to open the first one, and then doubled down and risked it all again for the second one. So it's quite risky, but I figured if I was going to do that and risk my life savings on a franchise concept, I wanted to uh, I wanted to be as sure as I possibly could that it was going to succeed or at least not fail. And so that's why I went the franchise route. To me, that was how I de-risked the business because I copied a business model that I knew was going to be successful. And fortunately, I was even more successful than I thought it was going to be, which was awesome. The second part of that about advice on hiring the right people, that is the hardest thing to do. I mean, we've said a lot of things are the hardest thing to do, but that's definitely up there. That probably is number one. And Shruti, I know you were kind of saying it. You hired people that were smarter than you, uh, and, and I'm sure you're being modest about that. But it's an important point that I think you were trying to make in the sense that at the very least, you have to find people that fill the gaps that you don't have, right? Nobody can be an expert in everything. And so you have to find the people that are good at what you're not good at. And that's extremely, extremely hard because if you knew what that was, you would be good at it yourself. And so for me, I do try to seek the advice of other people, or if I'm doing an interview and I know that I'm looking for someone with sales skills, for example, I'll go and I'll look at what are the qualities that make a good salesperson and try to find related questions that will help bring that out, right? And really think about what kind of answers would be would be great and hopefully they exceed those expectations. But really hiring the right people when you're especially in the early stages of any business, that is super, super important. It's the most important part of the business. outside of sales, because you have to have money in order to continue staying, right? Unless you're a professional fundraiser, which I know there are a lot of other people that do that. That was not my style. I didn't want to owe people money. I had done that once before and it didn't work, and I wound up paying everybody back out of my own pocket. So I didn't want to be in that situation again, and I don't ever want to be in that situation again. So I'm just not built for the fundraising type. But for me, I want to make sure that I am hiring the right people.
Perfect. You guys want to jump in? Head on to Niraj's question. It's okay. Okay. Yeah. Oh, Joe, you got something?
No, I think we can move on.
Okay. Okay. Where am I now? Okay. It's for everyone. How do you make major strategic decisions in your business? Do you have an advisory board or participate in peer advisory groups? A big theme for tonight, which we will work on. But yeah, anyone want to jump in?
I'm gonna say I do ask a lot of people who are my advisors, advisor boards, people who've known me or seen me throughout like the life cycle. Um, but I think that like indecision is like probably your worst enemy. Even if you make a bad decision, turn it into a good decision. Like just take the decision and stick with it. You're never gonna know, like even with a lot of advice, like it's up to you at the end of the day. So
Perfect. Thank you. Joe, Larry?
Seeking to build an advisory group, I'll say that. And so currently right now I'm making a lot of individualistic decisions, and it's not where I want to be because I like sourcing multiple opinions.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think we did touch on this a little bit before, at least I did. I do have a business coach, so I do rely on them for advice. And then also for the golf cave stuff, I have the franchisor and other franchisees that I can kind of lean on. And also the manager that I hired, he's become quite knowledgeable about the business, and I seek his advice on things outside of just the daily operations of the store. And so some of the larger, more strategic decisions that we're thinking of. So I'd say it's all that, but then also I rely on my family, my wife, my mom, my friends. I always want to get opinions from more people than fewer, and I might not agree with them. And if you ask 10 people the same question, you're going to get 10 different answers, right? But I do like the idea of, even if I don't agree with you, this is the part that I need to get better on. If I don't agree with you, I need to figure out a better way to be a little more diplomatic about that. But I feel like when I ask so many people, they get offended if I don't take their advice or if I don't agree with them. But for me, it's, I want to ask a bunch of different people to get that diversity of views and see all the different ways that other people think about that problem, and then make the right decision for myself after that. But trying to make it individually is not good, because we're limited by whatever our own experience is, and it's very helpful to seek differing opinions and a diverse experience.
Perfect. Very true. Okay, so we're at the 10-minute mark, huh? I guess I'm at my last question from the audience pre-submitted, and I think it'd be good to answer this, but also just maybe have a discussion. If anyone else wants to chime in, you're more than welcome, because this question is about the alumni network. So Michelle asks, how has your alumni network supported your career? Kind of touched on that already, but is that a function of your personal connections or the broader network? And how can we cultivate a more fertile network for entrepreneurs? And we've also already touched on a peer group, but if there's any other comments on that, any thoughts, any questions, definitely the chapter is all ears. Just whoever wants to.
I'll just tell you from my experience, the first company I was with, Train, we actually hired a ton of RPI engineers
Nice.
before me. I didn't meet them necessarily prior, but since, and we've all kind of done a really good job in the same industry, pulling up people through the network and kind of introducing them to the career, that choice that I had. And there's still a good runway of RPI engineers that have gone into sales engineering as a result of other alumni pulling them through. And I think it's really cool. It wasn't necessarily through a formal network, but just continuing to foster that and build that ladder for people to climb onto.
I think we're talking about the RAIN network, right? Or was that not?
Just general alumni network per se. And definitely I'm going to assume that Michelle's asking from a chapter standpoint, but really it's just an interesting thought of like how have you been supported already and how can we support you going forward?
I think I was looking for more RPI support, being like an innovation school. I reached out to the NYC chapter. I became a lead there. We're putting on more and more events, which is really exciting. We even won best chapter last year, which was fantastic. But yeah, like I've gotten to meet a lot of the board of trustees. We've got to meet random people in New York City that are working at like different locations that have been very valuable. Um, so I would encourage people to go to like the game night events. You never know where a conversation can lead. Networking doesn't necessarily have to be transactional. Sometimes you just got to keep your network hot and ask how they are. And yeah, like attending a game actually goes a really far away. I've cultivated some really great relationships out of that.
Perfect. Wait, who do I ask?
I suppose golf would be the perfect place to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Love to.
I think we already talked about having an event here. I'm happy to
We
host
have
you
just have to
guys here
schedule.
whenever. Everybody's welcome.
Yes. Um, yeah, I think there's just been so much conversation that can be actionable here, and I really appreciate that. Does anyone have any other questions since somehow we went through everything on my list? Anyone in the audience?
Nobody
Sure, I'll
has
speak.
questions.
Cool.
I just want to point out, I put the upcoming events calendar in the chat, so it's downloadable. And we've got stuff going on. If you're interested, there's more information on it. And of course, on the website, you can register for any of it that's ready to be registered for you.
Thanks, Michelle. Ryan, you had something?
Yeah, so I'm the youngest person in the room, a class of 25,
Thanks,
literally
Ryan.
graduated 14 months ago, just for those who are uh, aware. I was actually coincidentally in the room with Professor Ledet when he announced it to the Inventor Studio 2 class, so coincidentally this all comes full circle.
Oh,
Um,
beautiful.
and yeah, I actually had the question about about inspiration, where being young and and idealistic, also I'll call it. Like, when did you three grab your inspiration? Because we have courses like, I'll say, Inventor Studio 2, if you need, where it's like where it's like more novel ideas than say Capstone. But we also have a lot of other I'll call them extracurriculars, which encourage this innovation. So, where did your initial inspiration come from? Is, I guess, the question that I'll go with.
Jump in, guys.
Oh, I could guess I can go. So congrats again, Ryan, on graduating. It's a big feat. I was really happy to be there for my graduation. Um, I will say my inspiration was also very organic. I started off, like I mentioned, in traditional finance I was doing blockchain tech, so like tokenizing bonds and whatever. I jumped and I had a Web3 company that I IP exited, sold an idea, and I found myself in like the regulated spaces oftentimes. And that's kind of where I got my idea to automate regulated spaces for SMBs and like consumers, like day-to-day people, proposing laws. And I will say, speak to being idealistic. My idea is idealistic where it kind of plays into politics where it's like you and I can propose laws to our elected officials. Um, I mean, I wouldn't discount this. Like every idea kind of starts like that, and it depends how much you like whittle it down. And yeah, I don't have, I'm going to pass to Joe and Larry.
Fine. A little less idealistic than maybe the question was geared towards, but so I didn't have necessarily like a burning passion to go solve a problem, right? Where I think maybe some innovations really go towards. For me, my most recent event when I disbanded with my partners, I found myself in a situation that was very uncomfortable and very well, I'm fault traumatic to a point, to be honest. And I vowed to myself that I never wanted to be in a position where I was relying on someone else again. And so I wanted the freedom to control more of my destiny than I already had, and to create an opportunity to continue that and find multiple ways to support myself and to support the lifestyle that I want to embrace, and give freedom. So that's really where it came from for me.
Perfect.
I think mine's very similar to Joe's in the sense that I wanted to kind of control my own destiny and have, you know, the freedom to do what I want to do and work on what I want to work on. More specifically, though, I'll say, I meant, well, I want to try to keep this brief. I could go on for a half hour on this. So, no, it really came down to inside of that Oracle ecosystem, there was an integration and automation tool. So this was uh, a fairly novel thing. It came out in 2015, and that was right when I started ACBM Solutions. So those coincided exactly at the same time. And I really just wanted to become an expert in this tool. And so that I wanted to know more about it than basically everybody else. I was really one of the first people that was working with it. I was writing these orchestrations. Um, I believe the second person outside of Oracle to ever use it, and I did it all by hand, and that gave me a unique learning opportunity. And so it really came down to wanting to be the best at that very one specific niche thing, right? I just wanted to focus on this one piece, and then everything kind of grew out of that. So yeah, that was it for me.
Perfect. Ryan, you had a question from Shruti in the chat if you had an idea or concept that you can
I
share.
I don't have an idea or concept right now.
Okay.
I had my Inventor Studio 2 concept, but after spending what I will say is way too much time in that course reading through medical documentation and regulation, I kind of said that it would probably take me like 3 decades to recall everything. Um, but
Fair
yeah,
enough.
no, it was more alongside of like, RPI has obviously changed a fair amount since most people have gone here, and obviously even with the changes that Dr. Ledet is now fostering. So I just was wondering, like, was it RPI that fostered your inspiration, or was it something else? And in this case, it kind of seems like a combination of both.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Okay, well, it's a minute to 8. So worry not. Like I said, I'll send a follow-up email with everything with the link to the recording, with all these fun tidbits that everyone's sharing with Eric's information, of course, and then we can keep the conversation going. Yep, definitely get on campus on April 24th. Sincere thank you to all of our speakers. You guys are fantastic. And thank you for joining Eric, Dr. Leggett, who Dr. Ledet was my capstone professor. So that's a fun fact for you guys. And thank you all for joining. And our next event is, yikes, April 21st. So we're going to talk the C-suite life. So we have 3 also fantastic speakers then, and we're going to be doing this. So keep an eye out for other topics coming soon. Thank you guys so much for everything, for joining, for participating. Really appreciate it.
And thank you for organizing. We appreciate
Of
it.
course, my
Yes,
pleasure.
thank you, Ryan.
You're right.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you,
My
everyone.
pleasure. Michelle, I'll stay on.
Thank you so much, everybody, and we hope to see you at one of our other events. It doesn't have to be particularly this one, any of our events.
Truly.
And thanks again for joining us tonight.
Thank you.